Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar series. This is a two-parter. So last week we had a session on cloud-to-cloud migrations, looking at some of the patterns, some of the drivers, blockers, and a few tips. And we walked through a case study as well, so like a real-world example. If you missed that and you're interested in it, there is a recording of that. We'll share a link to the recording in the chat, so you can bookmark that and then catch up later. In today's session, we'll be talking about AI acceleration and looking specifically at, well, we'll be looking at two things: how AI can help you migrate to the cloud and also undertake modernization activities. And then also, once you're in the cloud, what does a successful AI deployment look like? So a two-parter on that today. Let me introduce myself before we jump into things. So I'm Mike, and I'm Technical Director at Scale Factory. I've got my colleague Saborni joining me here today.
Thanks, Mike. So hi, everyone. I'm Saborni, and I'm one of the lead consultants working at Scale Factory. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Saborni. So let's have a look at what we're covering. So we'll start off with looking at the migration journey, just as a bit of a recap, and then where AI, why AI basically. So sort of high level view at that, and then moving on to using AI to accelerate migrations. So starting to get a little bit more technical here. Using AI in AWS most effectively. So a few patterns, an overview of some of the AWS AI services. It's quite a fast moving landscape. So we'll look at what the current state of play is, and then briefly touch on data strategy for AI. So there's quite a lot to cover today. We've got enough time to get through everything. If you do have any questions as we go along, feel free to use the Q&A, and at the end I'll go through the questions. So you'll find the button on your Zoom bar either at the top or the bottom, depending on whether you're in the browser or you've got the desktop client. If you can't find it, do feel free to use the chat, and we'll have a look at that as well. So let's start with a recap and just look at the migration journey. So this here is sort of represented through the lens of Amazon's official migration program called Migration Acceleration Program, or MAP. So if you're familiar with that, this will all look familiar with you. But essentially, it's broken down into three distinct phases, and then within those there's a subset of activities. So starting with assess, looking at things like discovery, design and planning, so all the things you might do before migrating a single thing to the cloud. Then moving on to what's referred to as the mobilize stage, where we're looking at the foundational level activities that you need to undertake. So that might include building a landing zone, basically getting the host environment ready to take a production workload. You might migrate a pilot workload, do a bit of a POC to prove out all that works, and demonstrate that you can migrate a workload end to end. And then once you're happy with all that foundational work and there's no blockers in going forward, then the actual migration starts. For a large migration, it might be done in waves. So waves of applications or services might be moved to the cloud, and that'll include things like testing, all sorts of testing, performance testing, acceptance testing, integration testing, and so on. Thinking about like go live, so migrating data and actually flipping that switch. And it also might include some modernization as well. So the applications that you're moving might need a bit of modernization. There might be some containerization or something in there. And what we'll do today is look at these steps and see why and how AI might have an impact on these, because in each area there is the candidates for like AI-driven acceleration. So sort of thinking about it from a bit more of a business angle, really. If you're not familiar with this, Amazon has, under Amazon's MAP program, there is funding available, and I'll come back to how this relates to AI on the next slide. But if it's something you're not familiar with, Amazon's investment in migration projects is tied to the potential spend on the platform. So if you're going to migrate a workload to AWS, basically there'll be a calculation done to work out what your spend might be, and then from that, Amazon's investment will be calculated. Now, for a smaller migration, it's typically around about 15% of run rate, and then for a larger project, so the more significant a migration is, it'll go up to about 70%. It can go a bit beyond that as well, depending on the specifics of what you're migrated. The calculation itself is quite complicated. But this is just a rule of thumb. If you're not familiar with this program and want to learn more about it, I'm not going to talk too much more about this. Do drop us a line, drop me a message, and I can send you some more information. It's a blend of cash towards spending with a consulting partner and also AWS service credits as well. To offset some of the costs there. I did talk a bit more about the service credits and offsetting migration costs in the last webinar, so you can have a look at that recording as well. But let's have a look at why AI. So, long story short, time saved is money saved. So if you can use AI to accelerate one or more of those phases, then it saves you some time and saves you some money. It reduces a dual running window. So if you are migrating to the cloud, you're continuing to run your existing systems whilst also running the new systems in the cloud until you go live, and then you decommission the old ones. So the faster you can make that happen, you reduce that window, and then that saves you some dual running costs there. It also allows you to stretch your budgets further. So if you are migrating to AWS and use their MAP program, you've obviously got your service credits to offset some of that dual running cost. And you've also got some professional services cash to spend with a partner. If you can shorten that dual running window and you could do more with the cash that you spend with a partner, then it means that you can do a lot more. You can migrate more before having to dig into your own pockets. And then the other thing that we're going to have a look at in the sort of second half of the session is the future. So once you are then in the cloud, you've got these AI services on your doorstep that you can use for your own, add to your own products. You can introduce into your systems, and you can use to automate some operational tasks. And so we'll have a look at that as well. So I've covered all of the why. So for the how, and to dive into the more technical and specifics, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Saborni.
Thank you for the introduction, Mike. Hope my screen is visible.
All good?
All good, right? Okay, awesome. So Mike already covered about the MAP program and the different phases that you have in your entire migration and modernization journey. But what happens if you could save some time out there, because it's a time-consuming process? For that, definitely you can leverage the power of AI. So how AI generally helps you with the migration, the initial discovery phase, or during the assessing of your environment is these models are constructed in such a way that they are able to understand any kind of unstructured data and create relevant meaning out of it, or drive the actual business that you have from that the unstructured data that you have, which could include any kind of documents, the config file, the server logs, and any technical notes. Once you have that, with the help of the migration discovery, these models are able to understand what infrastructure currently you have in your environment and how each of these applications have relationship with the other. So it helps you with the heavy lifting, removal of the heavy lifting part that you as human being try to do in any kind of assessing of before migration in any discovery phase. So it does that for you. But what happens when you use AI tools? That means the applications or tools that works along with an LLM model. It provides you the following advantage, or these leverages that you can take is zero manual audits. You don't need to manually go ahead with the time-consuming process of extracting the information. The dependencies discovery, it automatically helps you mapping the application dependencies, like service A communicates with a database B, so that mapping, you have that in your hand. and the fast, rapid assessment which you need, that this is my current infrastructure estate, this is the cost that I'm getting, and what is the cost of moving on to a cloud or moving on to a different setup altogether. And it unblocks any kind of complexities that is very much dependent upon the human factors. So for that, AWS has certain excellent tools and products, and one of them which I want to talk about is AWS Transform. So it is an enterprise modernization and cloud migration workbench, which is powered by agentic AI. So it is generally designed as an autonomous engineering layer that sits in between user and your estate, that performs the analysis, the planning, and chalks out the pathway how you can migrate your legacy workloads to cloud effectively, and not as a POC, but also in scale. So core capabilities comprises of any kind of VMware workloads or estates that you have, the migration of that mainframe estate. If you have, it helps you with the modernization, Windows.NET modernization, AI workloads as well. Like if you are running it on your data centers, if you want to move it to AWS, it helps you with that, and any kind of custom modernization or code transformation. So just a overview of how the entire process works. So it begins with the discovery assessment phase. So you connect your environment securely to AWS Transform. The agents does the scanning, runs through the code base to the database and infrastructure, and it maps out all the dependencies. Then the next phase you go to is a wave planning. You define, so the agent proposes a wave plan, a roadmap of how you group certain applications, which are the possible candidates for the migration, just to in order to prevent any kind of breakage of the dependencies. It does that, and then it goes through a review process where human sits in the loop. Human checks, you as a user check so that the wave looks good, there's no potential breakage, and everything looks fine, and you go ahead with the execution and validation. So this gives you an like a scalar event of having your a migration and modernization done to AWS. So just talking is not enough. Data speaks all at all. So from the AWS documentation, if you could see, till date, 7 billion lines of code has been analyzed by AWS Transform, and approximately 2 million hours of manual effort, developer efforts, have been saved. And as Mike suggested, like said, if you are saving time, you are saving money as well. Another set of tool that helps users a lot is Kiro, which was previously known as Amazon Q Developer. So it was available in a CLI version as well as a plugin in your preferred IDEs. So it's an agentic AI powered coding assistant that can be integrated to your IDE code, and it was developed by Amazon by creating a fork on the Visual Studio Code. Key feature involved vibe coding and spec driven development, so where you can choose between conversational, either vibe coding, you chat first exploration, you just go, you ask the questions that this is what I want, and you have your application or code being generated. Or the other approach is a spec driven, where you specify what your requirements are, you define the task, you define the architecture, and then the agent works on to give you more reliable a production grade product. Agentic chat and steering is another thing where Kiro understands your entire code base, and it has a persistent context. It follows your specific convention via project level markdown files. Agent hook supports, so it automates the routine development events, for example triggering of any kind of actions, say a file is created or deleted or saved. If you want to trigger some actions, you can do that using agent hooks. And moreover, it supports multi-platform environments, so if it could be a desktop application, CLI, web interface, and even IDE plugin, uh, in the form of just an application you download, you use it. And it also has supports the MCP tool support as well. You can integrate or plug in any MCP servers that you want to bring in. And moreover, it also helps through all these features. It helps you with the legacy modernization of any kind of code quite easily. You can do that, and corresponding relevant, you can generate your own infrastructure as a code generation. So CloudFormation, Terraform, Pulumi, whatever you want, you can develop it quite well. Just to give you a glimpse of how the spec driven development works, so you define the requirement first, that this is what I want about my application. These are the acceptance criteria. This is my story. And then you go with the design. This is the overall design or architecture that I want. And then you specify the implementation steps, that you create this directory, you create a code, you create a file here, keep those dependencies, you specifies, and Kiro creates that production grade application for you. Now that we learn, that is what we learned about how AI can help you in your development, in migration and modernization, as well as in the development, but how we can use other AWS services products effectively. So AWS provides with a plethora of services. So it provides you with the infrastructure where you can run your own agentic AI services, even models. It provides you with predefined, custom, pre-baked models and tools as well, where you can run your own sets of application, and you have your own ready to use AI applications. So talking about the infrastructure, SageMaker AI stands alone with it's a full set of entire ML operations cycle that you can use, which I will be covering in the next slide. Then you have different types of chips that are available, like different types of EC2 instances, Inferentia, Trainium, Multicluster. GPUs are also there, where you can run GPU intensive workloads as well, and definitely any kind of agentic application you are running, you can run it on EKS and ECS as well. Talking about the models which we covered, Bedrock and Bedrock Agent Core. So this is a complete serverless managed package service where you can run your GenAI applications, use a complete set of foundation models that are provided, and you can do many more. I will be covering that in the slide. And the built-in applications, built ready AI, ready to use AI applications involve like AWS Transform, Kiro, and Amazon Quick, which I have not covered earlier. So it's just an agentic AI assistant that has the capability of like extracting business intelligence, and it can be easily plugged into your company's data, like a wiki, emails, shared drives, and to help you with to answer certain questions, build reports, and automate multi-step workflows using natural language. I talked about SageMaker. So it's a complete machine learning management lifecycle environment. So it gives you the complete package of different sets of services, from extracting data, cleansing data, feature engineering, and then you train your model from scratch, and by tweaking the hyperparameters, and then you can deploy, you host them, and even you monitor them, and you can implement all the MLOps pipelines and real-time monitoring to detect any drift, bias, or performance. Next is Amazon Bedrock. As I talked about it, it simplifies the Gen AI development through different layers, like foundation models, where different top performing models from leading brands are available over there, ready to use, and they get all unified with an API, quite easily used, quite easily. You will be able to integrate that on the interface level. And then goes the model customization. So in case you can pick up any of your model of your choice, you can fine tune them based on your domain data, and you can also utilize RAG completely, that connects your model to the external data source or your own data source as well. You can build agents and workflows. So Recently, you might have come across agent core is the buzzword recently, where you can create your own agent using any open source AI agentic AI framework, and it gives you a production ready environment you can spin up on that. And also you can develop multi-agent orchestrating platform with the help of Bedrock. And most important thing, that Bedrock provides you with the guardrails and safeties. So in this age, when you have access to data and when you have access to AI, you would be worried about any kind of exploitations. So at that point of time, you definitely need to be following the responsible AI approach, where any the data that you are dealing with, any of your customer data, you are taking extra measure to secure them and to definitely safeguard those. So that is very much important. But prior to agentic AI use cases, like when SageMaker and Bedrock was there, Amazon had its own sets of AI managed AI services that involved like image recognition, object recognitions, and transcriptions, like from speech to text or text to speech conversion, any fraud detection, and conversational voices and chatbots, text tracks. So all these services were already there, and users have been using them for a long time. The next important part is, as I was mentioning, that data is a critical thing. Definitely you need to safeguard data, but how effectively what is the best way to develop an agentic AI application, right? So there have been a thinking of a AI first and a data first approach. Which one should I focus on while building an AI application? So generally, with the current trend that every organization and enterprises, they're coming up with AI first approach, like thinking about how quickly we can come into the AI race. They don't think about the data, which is the underlying important part. So if you are going and directly creating an AI application without considering the data, you might have a faulty AI model or an application that is that is completely useless. So your first shift should be, what data I have in my hand in the business and how I can use it in a safe and a scalable way, and so that I can derive a real business outcome using AI. That gives you a sustainable result in the long run. So the first thing how you should be thinking of, like here in the adoption journey, is definitely having a clear view of what you want. So these are the 4 stages in an effective data strategy use in your GenAI journey, which is envisioning. So you must have a clear understanding of what use case you're trying to address, and what is the data at hand, and how much can I use it, and is there am I using any kind of PII information or any kind of sensitive data that I have, or any my business that I am on, or any infrastructure that I am on? Is there any requirement of any kind of safety and compliance? Based on that, you can think of the business use case. Then with the data at hand, you try to experiment with, by picking up a model, you try to test that model and see how that model behaves. Read about it, the documentation about the model, and see how effectively you can use it, by using either you use fine tuning to train that model, or you use RAG as well, which is retrieval augmented generation. Then once you have tested out, you go for a launch. You perform a full scale deployment of that, integrate with other systems, relevance downstream that is required. You see how you can enforce the security and compliance in that picture. Once that is done, you are seeing that responsibly your application is running, then you go for a scalable approach, but definitely taking into consideration of the data governance part, and understanding and seeing if any kind of pipelines could be reused, implementing automations in that, and any definitely taking importance of the safeguard and the guardrails mainly. So this is what your thinking strategy should be. It's not like a race where you directly jump into the AI race approach. Talking about the services that we have at Amazon, that could be used in different use cases. So for data processing and analysis, which is very much important before you go ahead with any kind of AI use cases, you can utilize Glue, Athena, Messi, Redshift, Amazon EMR, and QuickSight. I'm not going into the depth of this because we might have a separate session to cover that. But this is something what one should look out for, the options that you have. For data storage, you have a complete sets of S3 services, tables, vectors, and standard S3 buckets. And you have variations of databases, NoSQL database like DynamoDB, and even you can utilize Amazon RDS or based on what type of data you have. For data protection, definitely certain security policies, the key and the management services, KMS, and for user vector database, definitely you have other sets of options. With that, I would like to hand it over to Mike to cover the rest of the session. Yeah.
Thanks, Saborni. We've covered quite a lot today. So one thing I'll say, we covered quite a lot today in quite high level, and hopefully that serves as a good introduction to some of the AWS tools and services you can use in either speeding up a migration project with AWS Transform, or using something like AWS, using Kiro to modernize an application and do that at scale. And then once you're in the cloud as well, what options there are available for using AI services that are either AWS managed or for building your own agents, or maybe hosting your own models and stuff like that. We're planning some future webinars to dive into some of those topics in more detail. So do keep an eye out, because they'll be coming over the next couple of months or so. But for today's session, I guess I wanted to kind of wrap this up with a few key takeaways. So I think the first thing is, if you are undertaking a migration project or a modernization project, and the modernization project might be you're already in the cloud and now you're looking at taking your applications and making them a bit more cloud native or something like that, it can save time and resources, even at the discovery phase, getting all of your unstructured data, all of your documentation, and using a model to quickly make sense of that and interpret it, and see where the gaps are. Right, you can just have a model tell you what information you're missing that you have to then go away and find. So right from the discovery through to actually executing the migration, it can save you time and resources and money. So it's definitely worth exploring. The next thing is that, as is always the way with AWS, there are hundreds and hundreds of services, multiple ways of achieving the same thing. And sometimes it's quite easy to just jump in and just start playing with Bedrock and building something. But just take a moment to think about the AI services that are available, what your use case is, what your business requirements are, and just sense check and just make sure that you are using the right tool or the right service for the right job. And then lastly, the thing that Saborni covered towards the end about data strategy is that data really is your foundation. If you've got a data set that is not particularly accessible, or it's not stored in the right format, the structure isn't quite right, maybe the quality is quite poor, you're not sure what you've got, there's a huge amount of variance in the data. Maybe it contains PII, you're not even sure if it contains PII. These things will all be blockers as you start to build AI services to consume that data. So poor quality data going into an AI system is just gonna give you some problems. Like it will inherit that. So getting the data strategy right is absolutely key. So the next thing that I want to talk about is we're running a program. So if anything, any of the topics that came up today resonate with you, here's a program that we're running. It's aligned with AWS, with AWS funding at every single stage, and there are 4 stages here. So if you don't know where to get started, we've got an AI assessment program that we're running. it's a very short workshop, and it's just looking at building a backlog of use cases within an organization, and then mapping those to relevant AWS services. So sort of figuring out what the right tool is, what the right service is, looking at the gaps in the organization as well, and then providing a report. And that's funded by AWS. And then moving on from that to building a POC. Maybe you already have some use cases in mind, and the goal here is to get a POC running on AWS really quickly, and then most crucially having alongside that a path to production. So doing the planning for that. It's okay building a POC with some carefully crafted data that you've pulled together, but actually having a vision of, okay, we've got something we can demo. What is necessary to take this to production is forms part of that as well. Again, there's an AWS funding program allowing that. And then the next thing again is taking a POC to production. We've got a program for that, and I think the key thing here really is once you've got a POC or pilot, taking the feedback from that and then feeding that back into the system that's being built, fine-tuning the model, maybe looking at the actual model that you're using. Maybe there's a better fit model, and sort of reworking that POC so that it can be taken to production. And you'll probably notice there's a theme going on here. There is an AWS funding program aligned specifically for that. And then lastly, if you've added AI capability into your platform, into your product, and that's part of the software that you're building and taking to market, and you would like some go-to-market support for that, there is an AWS program for taking a new solution to market. So that includes a feasibility study and report, coming up with a joint business plan. So looking at how you might do co-sell with AWS and how they might be able to help promote your solution, and then AWS Marketplace enablement as well. I won't talk too much about AWS Marketplace, but if it's something you're unfamiliar with, just think Amazon.com, but for like software and services on AWS. And so you can list your products and services on there, and people can procure those through the cloud. Cool. So very last slide before we move into questions. Just a quick reminder, if you do have any questions, pop them in the chat or the Q&A, and then we'll cover those on the next slide. Just sort of moving on from the AI adoption journey piece. If you are doing migration discovery planning, you haven't heard of MAP before, you didn't know that there are incentives available, contact us. We can do that quick calculation for you to see how much you might be eligible for. If you're looking at how you embed AI into how you build software, so thinking about the software delivery lifecycle, maybe automating some operational toil in running your AWS infrastructure or doing operations, we can have a chat about operational AI and align that with the adoption journey as well. So we can get AWS funding to support that. AI use case discovery I talked about already, and POC to production as well. So that is all of the content for today. We're going to move on to questions now. So I'm just going to bring those up. Cool. Okay. So Saborni, question for you. Mm-hmm. Let's say we have built, so you talked about two services, Bedrock and SageMaker, or two key like foundational services on AWS. Let's say you built an application using Bedrock and the requirements have got a bit more complicated, and maybe you need to do something like pre-tuning a model, and therefore you've outgrown Bedrock as a platform. Maybe you need to move your workload to use SageMaker. Is that a straightforward path? Is it easy to do?
The answer is yes and no, both. So there are certain trade-offs while shifting from one platform to other. So you need to be very much, you need to understand what is your basic requirements are in terms of the keeping your workloads on Bedrock or moving to SageMaker or vice versa. So one thing that you need to keep in mind is what your, if the model that you need, it requires a pre-training, something that you want to maintain and do it from the scratch, SageMaker is definitely your option. But if it's something that you have certain set of data, very concentrated domain specific data, and you want you want to pick up a model, any model that is available on Bedrock, you can fine tune them or even run a distillation on that that you can keep on Bedrock. The other advantages or other features that I should mention about is Bedrock is serverless in nature. You just pay for the token. But for SageMaker, you this is for the services for the ML engineers who actually want to train the ML model underneath. For that, you need to provision your own EC2 instances or GPUs you need to provision. So the infrastructure, you are maintaining it. But from the end user perspective, there is not much difference. Both are exposed through APIs. It's just change in the API type and the client that you have. Interestingly, there is a document which Amazon already shared. I can share the link for others.
Yeah. If you pop that in the chat.
Yeah, I just popped that.
Yeah, that'll be super useful. I think it's one of these things where for most use cases, like Bedrock will be sufficient, but it's just for very specific requirements or sort of hosting custom models or doing some pre-tuning or stuff. Then SageMaker is the thing to use. Cool. I have another question as well. So talked a bit about agents. We haven't dug into that much, partly on purpose because we do have another webinar coming up next month. I don't want to make too many promises. we have a webinar coming up looking at Bedrock agents specifically, or building agents on Bedrock. I get there are three ways of running or building agents on Bedrock, right? You've got bespoke, or you can use Bedrock agents or Bedrock agent core. And so obviously you've got three options there. When should you pick one over the other? You got any tips?
Yeah, sure. So bespoke is something where bespoke agents or agent, if you want to build an agent from scratch, you want to define your own framework, you want to have your own underneath understanding and you have some regulations for which you need to have your own infrastructure. At that point of time, generally bespoke models are something that you should go ahead with. Talking about Bedrock agents and agent core, so agent is one of the managed application instances where you just with certain click ops you is there a technical glitch that happened? Just getting a
Oh, you're there. That's fine.
I'm there, right?
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. So agent is something you pick up generally when you just need a click and just you perform some click ops. You have one of your agent up and running. You specify that this is the person I want. And agent core is something, it's a modular approach. You have you can bring in your own framework agnostic. It can be any kind of open source frameworks that is available. It could be LangChain, Creo, AI, or even Strands. You can use it. You can build your own agent, host it, provisioning the runtime, taking care of the security. So there are multiple modules that can be used. But one thing is Bedrock agents have been announced. It has been announced that the Bedrock agents is getting retired, and it's now it is known as Bedrock Agent Classic. But instead of that, as a replacement, Amazon has come up with a Bedrock Agent Core harness, where it's just a wrapper that sits on top of the agent core other modular services. The experience in that front is quite similar to the agents that you have. You just specify something and with certain click ops you can have your own agent up and running.
Okay, that really simplifies things because it has been quite confusing with having Bedrock agents and Bedrock agent core, quite similarly named, and it's sort of trying to make the distinction and decision between the two. So actually everything coming under agent core now means that for, I guess, like 99% of use cases, you'll probably use agent core as a platform to build agents, unless you want to do something bespoke, in which case, you can go off and sort of build that.
However, like if anybody wants to know more about the difference between the managed Bedrock agents, how it used to be earlier, because from July 30, the service is getting retired, but still there's a blog which I have written and the Scale Factory published. So this is something I'm just sharing with the audience here for their reference.
Yeah, do pop that in the chat. What I might do actually is there is the announcement from AWS. So if anybody is running I think I saw it this week. If anybody is still running Bedrock Agents, now known as Bedrock Agents Classic.
I
Um,
have that handy. I can paste it.
yeah, okay, that would be
Yeah.
very cool. Okay, let's just yeah, there we go. I don't know. There we go. Cool. So yeah, that's all of the questions that we have. So I think that's it for today. As I mentioned earlier, we are planning on running another couple of webinars. I don't want to give away too much or make too many promises, but they'll be on Bedrock Agents, Bedrock Agent Core now, and building production grade agents on there. Might even have a demo. Might even have a live demo if we're brave enough for that. And then the other one will be looking at Amazon Quick, which is Amazon Quick Suite, Amazon Quick Site, have sort of evolved into that. So it's an AI powered business intelligence platform. So we'll be taking a look at that as well. So do keep an eye out for those. But thank you everyone for coming along.